As we talk through lessons of the life of Gideon, there is a point where we come to questions. And if life was so filled with lovely that it never left us longing or needing our Lord, perhaps we'd never have questions. If all we ever did was get raises, we might not have questions. If every light we ever came to was green, perhaps we'd never have questions. If our home value only ever increased while our taxes decreased, perhaps we'd never have questions. If the only way our children ever answered us was, "Yes, sir," "Yes, ma'am," I would be glad to. "Ooh, please, can I wash the dishes? Ooh, please, can I have some more chores? Ooh, please, can you help me study so I can get better grades? I don't really want to play the video game." If that's all we ever dealt with in life, perhaps we never have questions. Perhaps if in the marriage vows there was only for richer, in health, and we'll never part. Perhaps if that's all there was, there'd never be questions. Perhaps if we went to the gym and all the weights were light, and yet we got really big muscles. Yes, I said muscles. I said it like that on purpose. If life was just filled with joy and happiness, sunshine but no rain, perhaps we'd never have questions. But as we learn from the life of Gideon, I stand here with two shoelaces and two shoes appropriately fitted on each foot to tell you I recognize that what some of you have heard, that you ought not ask questions, that's not what we discover here in Judges chapter 6 and looking at the life of Gideon. As a matter of fact, you might discover that there's more questions than are readily available in the text. Judges chapter 6, verses 13 through 16 in the NIV declares, "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? The clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." For those of you who are particularly astute, as we were reading through, you may have noticed in the text, in the NIV, 4 question marks. 3 question marks were attributed to Gideon, and 1 question mark attributed to God. So you might think in this message entitled Questions. Lesson from the life of Gideon that there's 4 questions. Let's look a little deeper. As Gideon starts off this particular pericope, he says, "Pardon me, my Lord." Before you even get to the question mark, I argue there's a question right here. In the declaration, "Pardon me, my Lord," which is part of a phrase, not even the complete sentence, there's a question. And it's a question of relationship. Pardon me, my Lord. That's what Gideon said. And since God knows who he is, and since Gideon is interacting with the only one and true God, it would seem as though there's nothing to be discovered here. And yet, "Pardon me, my Lord," I argue implies that there's a question, and it's a question of relationship. And maybe like Gideon, you have faced this question. You wonder where your relationship with God is. Gideon called him Lord. He was polite enough to say, "Pardon me, my Lord." He was polite with it. And there's times when we might be polite with God because we're in a polite place, where we find ourselves not even realizing that we're questioning God in our interactions with him or our lack of interactions, because if we don't say anything to him, often he's so polite, he might not say anything to us. And so we find ourselves having a question about a relationship that we don't even realize that we're asking. It's that question for those who have not chosen to align themselves with the body of Christ, chosen to align themselves with First Baptist Church Chilton, for example, to say, "I am a member of the body of Christ, and so I'm a member of First Baptist Church Chilton, and I don't care who knows it." Pardon me, my Lord. He was talking to God. But there's a question of relationship. And I would argue that, like Gideon, our relationship with God is as close as we choose for it to be. It's never a question of, is God close to us? It's always a question of, are we willing to be close to God? Because he's polite enough to allow us to actually turn our backs and walk away from him, pretend he doesn't exist, come to church whenever we feel like it, read his word whenever we feel like it, pray whenever we feel like it. The question of relationship often starts off as if it's polite, and we don't even realize that it's a question. And we'll call him Lord, but that doesn't mean our behavior betrays that he is Lord. Pardon me, my Lord, is a question of relationship. Gideon replied, "But if the Lord is with us." I realize you still don't see the question mark. And yet again, I say there's a question here. Gideon replied, "But if the Lord is with us." It's a question of theodicy. He was polite in his approach. But many of us, like Gideon, are wondering if. We're questioning whether or not if God is truly with us. Gideon wondered and inquired if. That's a dangerous question, but it's an honest one if we're willing to ask it. Because in all the examples that I gave of things going well in our lives, when we're smiling and happy and the money is coming in and our health is good and everything is going the way we want it to go, the grades are fantastic. I'm not sure why everybody can't be valedictorian. I'm just saying it seems like everything is great. But as soon as the problems come, often we have a question of if, like Gideon had. And I realize there's not a question mark there, but that doesn't mean there's no question. If the Lord is with us, there's an implication that the omnipresent God, meaning he can be everywhere at the same time, we have this thought that maybe he's with us or maybe he's with them. Maybe he's with them and maybe he's not with us. Is he with us? And that's what we often wonder. When we see somebody else that clearly it seems as though they're blessed, whether or not they're living a life of a believer, we still see they seem to be prospering. They seem to be going well. Everything seems to be going great. And we're struggling, trying to figure out if the Lord is with us. I encourage you in your casual reading to check out Psalm 37 to recognize that sometimes it might appear that people don't have any relationship with God. It seems as if he's taking mighty good care of them. While the people who have called themselves a child of God and have sacrificed in this life to do what he calls for us to do, struggle and have a hard time. And we might or might not say it out loud. But then we have this question of if the Lord is with us. We wonder whether he's with us. We wonder if he's with First Baptist Church Chilton. We wonder if he's with our family. We wonder why the stuff that's going on, if he's with us. Pardon me, my Lord, it's a question of relationship. Gideon replied, but if the Lord is with us, it's a question of theodicy. Perhaps God is all powerful and able to do all things, but why is there evil in the world? Why is there suffering in the world? Why is there hard times in the world? If he can handle it, why won't he handle it? It's a question of theodicy. Pardon me, my Lord, it's a question of relationship. Gideon replied, but if the Lord is with us, it's a question of theodicy. Here it is. Why? I don't even have to go any further. Why? That question that's simple to ask and often difficult to get an answer to. And then placed on top of the why. Why has all this happened to us? Gideon wasn't with the enemy. Gideon was with the good guys. Gideon was with the ones God had chosen, God had picked out. And Gideon wants to know, why has all this happened to us? Don't say it out loud, too loud, because your neighbor, who's incredible sanctimonious, might think less of you. But as you struggle in your relationship with God and his church, you may have wondered, why has all this happened to us? You watch the news. You listen to the doctor's report. You recognize what you face in relationship challenges, and you wonder, why has all this happened to us? We're the good guys. We're the ones God has picked out. We're the ones who said yes to him, and he did all this for us. Why has this happened to us? If you've never asked that question, I wonder if you've truly been honest with yourself and God. If the difficulties that you faced, you're willing, like Gideon, to turn it over to him and to ask him directly. You're not getting ready to break God. He can handle our hard times. He can handle what we don't understand. He can handle what your friends don't want to hear. Pardon me, my Lord, questions of relationship. Gideon replied, but if the Lord is with us, there's a question of theodicy. Why has all of this happened to us? It's a question of providence. If he's really in charge, why won't he make it better for us? Why won't he work it out for us? Why has all this happened to us? Where? I'm just walking down the text. Where are all his wonders? It's a question of reality. The ancestors told you all the wonderful things that God has done. But part of why we're asking why has all this happened to us is because we're wondering, where are all the wonders? We've read about, we've heard about miracles. We've heard about him doing the impossible. We've heard about God being able to do what no other power can do. And then when we find ourselves needing him to do, we're wondering, why won't he do? Where are all his wonders? We've read about it. We've heard about it. Where are they when we come to him? It's a question of reality. It seems like reality just beats us down and makes us face what we don't want to face. It's a question of reality. Where are all the wonders that our ancestors told us about? That's a question of intimacy. Brothers and sisters, I hate to shock and surprise some of you. There is no such thing as being a grandchild of God. I don't care how much of a relationship mama had with God. I don't care how much of a relationship grandpa had with God, daddy had with God, uncle whomever had with God. The relationship is for us to choose with him, for us to display with him. That our ancestors told us about. It's great for somebody else to have a wonderful relationship with God and tell you all about it, but if it's not your walk with him, that's a question of intimacy. This might surprise some of you. I only married one woman. She's sitting right there. So, if your bride's special occasion or day, let's say your anniversary comes around, and your bride doesn't get a gift from me, nobody should be surprised. I didn't marry her. I married her. Some of us are not intimate enough with God to have a close enough relationship with him to have what we need from him. When they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? That's a question of perspective. Who was brought out of Egypt and who was killed in the battle is a matter of perspective. Whether things went well or things didn't go well is a matter of whose side you were on and what God did for whom. And sometimes, whether a person goes to jail is a thing to be celebrated or a thing of sadness. Depends entirely on perspective. If you're on the defensive side, it's a horrible thing. But if you're on the side of those who were victims, then you celebrate it and call it justice. How we see what God does often depends on our perspective. And we have questions of perspective. Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? Whether or not you've been brought up, whether or not you're on the way up, whether or not what's going on is a come up or a put down, often depends on your perspective based on your intimacy with he who loves us. But now, the Lord has abandoned us. That's a question of distance. That's a question of wondering whether or not you feel God is right there for you when you need him most. And sometimes You're not struggling with questions of theodicy or questions of providence or even questions of relationship. It's a question of distance, because it just seems like this creator of this universe that has done absolutely magnificent things, sometimes it just seems like he's distant. Seems like no matter how hard you cry, like he just doesn't hear you. Sometimes it seems like it's a matter of distance. So no matter now how close you want to be to him, it just seems like he's just not there. You remember when your parents went on a vacation and left you behind? That's a question of distance. The relationship is no different. They're still your parents. But if they're not close enough to be able to feed you, if they're not close enough to be able to rub you on the back when you need encouragement, sometimes distance makes it seem as though it's not what it could be. And sometimes God seems distant. And given us into the hand of Gideon. All these questions. Right after it seemed like God was distant, there's a question of caring. Some people struggle with the relationship with God, with the relationship with the church, because sometimes it just seems like God doesn't care. We may know that he knows what's going on, but sometimes it just feels like not only is he distant, but sometimes it seems like he doesn't care. When my dad would go on trips way far away, often he'd bring something back or send something back. Or I'd know it was him who was taking care of me even from a distance. But sometimes, brothers and sisters, it just feels like God doesn't care. They were given into the hand of the Midianites. Why would God allow them to be delivered into the hands of the Midianites if he truly cared? The Lord turned to him and said, "Go to in the straits you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" We need to know who's in charge here. "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel?" That's a question of obedience. When you're facing all these questions, when it just seems like his providence, his theodicy, his sovereign nature, his distance, his ability to care, when it just seems like it's just too much and too far away, the question is, will we still be obedient to the one who gave us the breath of life? Will we still be obedient when we don't understand what he's doing? Will we still be obedient when we just don't get what God is doing because of what I'm going through? And then, just in case you didn't really get it, Gideon puts this on top as if he's telling God God's business. "My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." That's a question of ability. When you just don't know how to make progress, how to move forward, and you've been filled with questions, maybe questions you've been afraid to even ask or to ask out loud, or wonder whether you can even bring them to God. All these questions that Gideon was honest enough to ask, and even the ones that I say are behind the scenes that sometimes we wonder and don't really know why we're wondering them. I stopped by today in this, the land of the dying, on our way to the land of the living, to tell you that no matter what your questions are, and no matter how difficult those questions are, Wondering whether or not God cares? Wonder or not God is distant? Wondering whether or not God can handle it? There's only one answer that matters. The Lord answered, I will be with you. And you will strike down all of the Midianites, leaving none alive. That's the only answer that matters. God will be with you. When it feels like he's distant, when it feels like he doesn't care, when you don't have the answers to your questions, when you're not sure where to turn, when you're not sure how intimate your relationship with him truly is, no matter where you've been, what you're going through, what you're facing, the same promise God gave to Gideon, God has for you today. I will be with you. He fulfilled it when Jesus came down from heaven, lived a sinless life, and gave up his life on Golgotha's hill. He died after fulfilling the promise to be with us, Emmanuel, God with us. He was raised again on the third day, and he's coming back with all power, heaven and earth, in his hands. No matter how many questions you have about this life and this world and these circumstances, his promise to Gideon is still his promise to all. I will be with